5 years ago, truly chilling things began to happen to me. Specifically, starting from December 22nd, I remember that day my husband went to work around 5 in the morning. As usual, he said goodbye to me and I saw him leave. I was just getting ready to start the household chores when I heard someone close the door. I thought it was my husband who had forgotten something. As I stood in the hallway leading to the entrance, I realized there was a very tall woman with long hair. She was wearing a white dress raised at the sleeves. She had no face. She was a skeleton. She turned toward me and began to approach. When I looked at her feet, I realized she wasn't walking. She was floating. I panicked and couldn't move. She started saying many words to me and I truly didn't understand anything. She spoke in a very strange language and despite not having eyes, I could feel her gaze fixed on me, which terrified me even more. Everything around became completely blurry and I couldn't see anything. I could only distinguish her in front of me. I think it was something caused by my nerves. I simply couldn't pay attention to anything else. It was something that impacted me greatly. After saying all those words, she began to laugh mockingly as if ridiculing me. A cold shiver started to run through my body when she approached. At that moment, I gathered my courage and pushed her with all my strength. I realized that by doing so, she disappeared and everything around returned to normal. For a few moments, I was in shock. I didn't know what I had just witnessed. I went to my bed and lay down, thinking and thinking. I remembered everything that had just happened. After a short while, I heard my brother knocking and desperately shouting outside my house for me to open the door. When I opened the door, he quickly burst into tears. Then he approached me to hug me. He told me that my Uncle Carlos had just died. I truly didn't know what to say. Hearing that only made me feel worse. I didn't really expect them to have an answer. I simply wished someone else knew. I will never know exactly what that entity was. The only thing I knew was that it was the most terrifying experience I had lived through up to that date. I say this because precisely a month ago, I was asleep in my bed when I suddenly felt enormous nails running down my back. I just opened my eyes, but I was terrified at the thought of turning around. At that moment, I was facing the wall. My fear deepened. When I sensed that this thing knew I was already awake, it started scratching me harder. When I finally turned around, I was horrified to realize it was the same woman, lying next to me. She opened her mouth and started to expel a liquid. I think it was blood. I got up with a loud scream, and when I turned on the light, I realized she was no longer there. A few minutes later, I received a call. I didn't want to answer because I feared what might have happened. But finally, after letting the phone ring for a few seconds, I gathered the courage to do so. I finally answered. Upon doing so, I received the news that an aunt of mine had just passed away. I dropped the phone and was left paralyzed. I still don't know what's happening. The idea that has now formed in my head causes me quite a bit of fear. And it's that. I honestly don't even want to think that this woman appears to me every time a family member of mine is about to die. I would be very grateful if someone could help me by giving me some advice. I want to prevent her from appearing to me again. It truly scares me a lot. For now, I say goodbye. Thank you for your time.